This has nothing to do with our tests.
Now you're confusing me. How many tests are you doing right now from a simple pinprick as you described in that TED Talk?
Yeah, so right now, just because of this FDA transition, we're only doing one, right?
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that we don't have the technology to do them or that we haven't done them in the past.
And are you confident that you will get the FDA approval to do the 200 that are a standard part of the draw?
Well, so there's multiple parts to this. One is the validation of those tests under the lab framework. The other one is the FDA submission, and this is an area of evolving policy that we're working to create a leadership position in. We've never talked publicly about what the status of what we're doing with FDA is, because we just hadn't felt that was appropriate until we got into all of this recent press communications. But we're incredibly confident in the data that we've submitted to the agency. We've worked on it for 2 years. And we've met the standard of comparing our tubes to vacutainers, which are the big tubes that come from the arm. And we're hopeful that we'll see those.
So you feel confident that that vision you laid out 9 months ago will still happen, that you'll be able to do comprehensive tests from a single prick?
Absolutely, and we've done it in the past, and we're going to continue to do it in the future.
All right. Chase, what do you got?
This nonstop head nodding. I want you to watch while she's being asked the question, and her head never stops moving. This is her nervous gesture, but I think this is a habitual thing that she's developed to interact with people and to just gain some kind of rapport and get somebody on board. She's been very good at getting somebody on board. And I think that the way she's able to dupe all of these investors was to get a couple of big fish and let their credibility speak for itself. But she had to get them. She still had to get a couple of people. And I think this is one of those behaviors that she learned, which is extremely unusual behavior. She throws up a stop gesture. And a stop gesture is when all of your fingers extend, even if you're like making food in the kitchen, you're listening to this in the background, just try it out. If your fingers stretch out all the way, that's what's going to happen if you're trying to stop someone from doing something, you're trying to talk someone out of something, even if your hand's in your pocket or down at your side or in your purse. Our hands will extend outward when we're trying to talk someone out of something or get them to stop. And this is right when she's answering or about to answer the technology question. Do you have the technology to do all these tests? So we've now seen her nodding her head, and head shaking is indicative of agreement or disagreement. We know she shakes her head no for disagreement and yes for agreement. And she doesn't really want to confirm anything, only confirming the negatives of like what's not there and what's not present there. And she's making this like container shape with her hands to illustrate these different levels or these different parts. And it shows she's most likely a kinesthetic person, which she uses feeling words, which would be like if I was interrogating her, I would start transitioning into constructing my language that way. But she continues to use these team pronouns of us, our, we, when referring to the company. And it's interesting. I want you to see when she starts using self-referential pronouns and exactly precisely when. We're going to dissect that here in just a second. But people are going to use more team pronouns when they're speaking about something they don't want to fully own. And yes, CEOs are going to do this all the time. But when they're asked direct questions about themselves, this was a direct question about her personally, and she starts answering with team pronouns. That's when it becomes unusual. When she says we're hopeful, her hand kind of tosses out. And when she finally confirms that she's confident about it, she says the words absolutely, and she's shaking her head no.
Absolutely.
It is a good data point here because we have established a baseline. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So I think, that there is this agreement behavior, just as you say there, Chase, which I think she has evolved. She's learned. She may have been trained a little bit as well in, how do you get people on board? But it is so consistent and so over the top. And I think, ultimately, I think as you were saying, Greg and Scott and Chase, it's going to evolve into, I think, almost a self-soothing gesture. In the end, it's so consistent and ramps up. Use of the detailed finger gestures they're just nice to see. It's a great one to be able to use, let people know, look how big my brain is, because monkeys can't do that. Monkeys can do this. So the moment you start being more detailed with your fingers, the brain kind of sparks up in the neocortex for your audience, and they get really interested in what you're doing. So again, it's a nice way to convince people, is to be really delicate and fine with those gestures. Hyperbole, exaggeration in there, which potentially could speak to business speak, but also speak to potential narcissism, psychopathy. It's one of the elements that you might look for in both of those, because she says, this is there's multiple parts to this.
So there's multiple parts to this.
Then she comes up with two parts.
One is the validation of those tests under the lab framework. The other one is the FDA submission.
So it's a multiple of two then, isn't it? There was only one part we thought, and there's another part. I would say multiple parts would be like potentially 3 or more. I'd be looking for 5, just to kind of build it out a little bit. No, multiple parts, 2. So that I'd say is hyperbole. And then she goes in an element of it, hopeful.
And we're hopeful.
There's a little gap, then an we don't see from her very much during this. And we get a little kind of micro duck of the head on that. Can't remember what the question is, but I think it's about the veracity of the results that they get or the technology. Hopefully, duck of the head. At that point, I would be going short on this stock. It's not a public company, so I'd have no way of doing this. It's all private investors. So, ultimately, this is not really hurting the public as investors. It's incredibly rich families are involved in this. But it is hurting the public in terms of their faith in medical equipment. I think that's the real issue here. Hopeful duck of the head. At that point, I would be going, no, this doesn't look good at all. I don't like what I'm seeing there. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, so start off by saying even the interviewer sees her sleight of hand and her chaff and redirect. So he starts to put her on notice. And he says, you're confusing me with, and her head bob rate starts to increase. So I teach people that when you're listening to an argument, if you nod quietly, the person will divulge information. I don't teach them to do this constantly like the dog in the window, little bobblehead dogs or that kind of thing that you get. We always say the organism does what makes the organism successful. She rose to prominence by being among people and persuading them. Now, if they fell for that in the beginning and she shook her head a little and that just continued, then she would evolve and she would do more of that. And she surrounded herself with experts. And I always say one way to make yourself an expert is by association. If I hang out with the right experts, then I'm an expert too. And people fall for that. It just works that way. If you watch her, when you ask her how many tests, she grips her hand. You also watch that her hands only come up and speak when she is certain of what she's going to say. Her hands stop otherwise. Chase, I love the fact you caught her doing absolutely when she says that only for negative things otherwise, and you can see that she's falling apart there. She's doing this romancer thing we talk about by staring you right in the eyes as she dumps a lot of chaff. And then her head does become an illustrator. One of the few times she uses her head to make her point when she's talking about the FDA. She is shrinking. To your point, Scott, she's shrinking in that chair and getting smaller and smaller by the minute. And she's using something that I call insulator, or we call insulator in the True Crime Workshop, because she is using jargon that you have to dissect. She's talking about micro-containers and vacuum containers, whatever she's talking about there.
We've met the standard of comparing our tubes to vacuum-tainers, which are the big tubes that come from the arm.
She's using that not only as a piece of jargon, but she even explains what she means by it, just so that she can burn up more airtime. This is a way for her to burn up space. And the last thing I'll leave you with is, I've been in business a long time and worked with a lot of business leaders. Words like hopeful, believe, I always say to people who are leaders, those are church words, not business words. Think, know, understand are business words. So anytime I hear those from somebody, and all the way from teaching project managers, all the way up to partners who are CEOs and that, I would say, don't use those words. Those do not instill confidence. So that's what I see. I would not believe her. And I'm with you, Mark. I would have been like, hold on, red flag, red flag. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, she feels the noose tightening at this point. So she's getting, as she gets a little bit more stress, and this guy's a little bit loud, that voice that throat starts to constrict a little bit, and she's trying to keep it low, but it's staying in the middle. And it's what makes her voice sound so odd at this point. And she starts adapting using that ankle. And her regulator, you're right, Chase, when she comes out and puts that hang on a minute, trying to get control of what's going on because it's getting away from her. She's bobbing and weaving at this point. Now they're small. Her illustrators are small when she gets into that because of the FDA transition and all that. They get really small because she's thinking, how am I going to get out of this? I can't believe anybody would buy this at this. I mean, I train people how to look for this when they're talking to entrepreneurs, the VCs that are all going and watch for this. And I've trained somebody. I can't believe that she got past this, which makes me think there's other people with her. It's not just her. There's other people that have helped make this happen, knowing it was at the same time. They had to have known that. Again, you guys are right. Like the Wicked Witch of the West, man, she's getting smaller and smaller as she goes along. In the second half, her illustrators are big again, and she's and she comes out and after that second question, swinging for the damn fences, man. She's coming on hard with that. She's just going for it. But her barrier arm and that thing stays strong. She's right there, barriered in, and she's going with it. So I cannot believe somebody would believe this. Of course, we know what to look for, but still, I know for a fact there are people like us that help VCs look at these people. I can't believe that she got this far with this. I'm dumbfounded by this, and anybody would believe it. Even hearing it now, somebody didn't stand up in the audience and go, "Hey, wait a minute, man! There's no way you could." I can't believe that didn't happen. I can't believe. What are you going to say, Greg?
Yeah, so a few things. We're using a lot of language in here, assuming that everyone knows what we're talking about. Illustrators. I'm illustrating and punctuating what my brain is thinking, either word, phrase, or thought. Barriers. I'm putting something between me and you. Adapters, I'm rubbing my hands, I'm gripping my leg, I'm doing that. And then finally, regulators, and you're going to see her use them a lot. Regulators, stop, hold on, wait, go ahead, speed up, stop, all those kinds of things that we use. So those 4 things, guys, we need to remind everybody, because not everyone has watched us many times. All you new subscribers, this is for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, please subscribe. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe. If you like this video, get the full body language breakdown and analysis on our main channel by clicking this video right here.